So I'm Anirudh Aggarwal. So they asked me to guesstimate the number of Aggarwals in Delhi. That was one of the interview questions that they asked. If you are finding a particular question difficult, chances are that 99% of the population is finding that difficult. Worst experience would be the most stressful experience, is what in B school circuit we call it, is definitely IIM Calcutta.
The formula to get 99 percentile score is here. Enroll now. The link is in the description and in comments. See you there.
My name is Anirudh Aggarwal. I am from Delhi. I completed my Bachelor's of Commerce from Hansraj College, Delhi University in 2021. Post that, I worked in Bain Capability Network, which is one of Bain's companies in Gurugram, Haryana. I worked there for about 18 months. I left my job in Feb this year. And while I was working, I was in consulting. I actually liked the field. But somehow, due to my interactions with my managers and the partners on the case, I kind of realized that that 360-degree perspective which you get is something that I lack. And upon researching, I found that MBA would be the right step. And that's how I gave CAT in 2022 and landed up in IIM Bangalore this year. So in my first attempt, I got a 99.02 overall percentile. In my second attempt, I started working, and although it was COVID and I was working from home, but definitely that working hours and managing studies was something which was very new to me, which is why my percentile actually dipped in my second attempt and I had a 98.66. And finally this year in CAT 2022, I had a 99.75 percentile overall. So when I was preparing for CAT this year, I gave this with the mindset that okay, this is just an exam. It is not going to define my career. The earlier two attempts were like too hinged on CAT, and which created an internal pressure on me. I had a target, but it did not mean that I would stop my life. And second thing was around the mental preparation which goes when you are actually giving the exam. It is 3 sections, and you have to do well in each of them because all of the IIMs have sectional cutoffs. But at the same time, you don't let one section's performance hinder the other section's performance, which is what has actually happened with me in the previous attempts. So these were the 2 main differences in hindsight that I can see, which I think kind of worked this time. All 3 of the sections are not similar. Definitely, they have their own ways to crack them, and definitely there was a strategy in place for all of the 3 sections, and which is where the mocks come into picture, right? You prepare using mocks, you solidify the strategies that can come, because CAT every year will throw a surprise, and that is something I actually want to tell people who are listening, that CAT will throw surprises. For us, it was 2 major surprises were introduced this year. They introduced a new VARC type of question. They changed the number of questions in each of the DILR sets. So these are things you prepare yourself with when you're preparing for mocks, and definitely there was a strategy in place. So for VRC, it's a lengthy section. You have a lot of passages, a lot of reading to do. It is the first section of the exam as well. So the strategy that I personally followed for VRC was that the passages are going to be very dense. They're not going to be of topics which are quick to easy read. It's not that. So you have to develop a particular speed. You have to understand whether this passage is becoming difficult or it's easy, and you have a time limit to solve the paper, because VRC is one section which you can actually end up losing marks on if you don't complete the entire paper. So my strategy for this section was go all in, attempt the maximum number of questions, because at the end of the day, you don't know how accurate you would be in VRC. For DILR, again, I think a lot of people say this, and it's true, that the main thing is you have to choose the right set. If you don't choose the right set, it's a spiral. It's just 40 minutes. You end up losing the entire time, and then it is going to be very difficult to come back. The first step was to select sets in the first 2-3 minutes, and then it was all about doing them on a priority. 5 minutes I would spend. If I don't get it, I move to the next priority. For QA, since I come from a non-engineering background, I knew I was competing against engineers who are more adept at quants. So for me, I knew my speed is not that high that I can attempt all the questions. So what I followed was going from question number 1 to the question number last and just doing 1 round. I don't have the capacity to do multiple rounds. My speed was not as high. So I would used to spend about 20 seconds analyzing whether I have to do this question or not. And then I would decide whether I will do this. If I do it under 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then I move to the next question. I took classroom coaching in my first attempt. I took it from Time, and I had their coaching material. Apart from that, it was mostly taking mock series. I used the top 3 ones: Time, IMS, and CL. and referring to YouTube for certain things. Like for example, some of the Unacademy videos are good for certain concepts, so that's something that I referred to. I actually, for QA, I made my own notes, so I didn't actually refer to external sources a lot. Once I had made those notes, that was my ready reckoner to go back to any of the concepts that I think I lacked in. So D-Day was a memorable day for sure. I had slot 1 again. Slot 1 students obviously have one disadvantage, that any surprise that comes in that year is something which slot 1 does not know. The other slots get to know it because we have already given the paper. Personally for me, I already had 2 real CAT experiences, so I knew what the paper is going to be like. And just keeping in mind the fact that if you are you've put in the effort, if you are finding a particular question difficult, chances are that 99% of the population is finding that difficult. And this mindset does really help you, especially in a slot like ours where VRC was exceedingly difficult. It was a very difficult section to crack. They introduced a new variety of questions, and to top it all, they made the questions difficult. When you are sitting in front of an exam like that, the only strategy that works here is to keep your mind calm. You know you've worked for it, and try to navigate it through and trust the process. Not if you are finding it difficult, most likely everyone is finding it difficult. So that thing translates across the sections. And the surprise elements, you deal with them, right? So I'll tell you one quick thing. So as I told you, right, I don't have a very high speed, so I go through questions, and in the last 5 minutes I got to know that they introduced a new variety of questions. Now that can induce panic, that okay, where is the question that I'm used to solving? But at that point of time, it's good to take a 10 seconds break. I actually took a 10 seconds break. I had a sip of water, and I realized if it's a new question, it's a new question for everyone. And you try to solve it through, and actually did end up solving one of the 2 of the new variety questions that had come. So those are things which you do. And one strategy actually I would like to share is that in between sections, I used to take a 30 seconds break. That 30 seconds break does help you cut off from the previous section. So when I'm shifting my gears from VRC to DILR, I had a 30 seconds break so that I can approach the section with a fresh mindset. So my worst experience would be the most stressful experience, is what in B school circuit we call it, is definitely IIM Calcutta. It was a 45 minutes interview that happened, and it went on and on. It was not ending. The experience was really intimidating. I had earlier, since I'm a COVID graduate, I wasn't used to giving face-to-face interviews. I gave that. It was one of my first interviews. One of the panelists did not sit for the entire duration of the interview. So constantly in the whole room, he was roaming around and around and around. And whenever he was asking me to solve a question, he actually stood here and he checked what I was doing. So when you are in a B school, that too IIM Calcutta, you are appearing for that interview which you've prepared for so long, it does become stressful. The panel was up to asking any questions that they were throwing curveball questions. So to give you an example, I'm Anirudh Aggarwal. So they asked me to guesstimate the number of Aggarwals in Delhi. That was one of the interview questions that they asked. So that does happen in an interview, and that is, now that I think it's memorable, but at the time it was the most stressful interview that I gave. The other interview which I found was good was IIM Lucknow. IIM Lucknow mostly focused around my work experience. So that interview was something which was well in my comfort zone, and I was able to sail that through much better. I feel, first of all, to non-engineers, CAT is something which is very much doable. It is not an exam which is just made for engineers. Think of it this way, that just because there are more number of engineers, that's why there are more number of engineers who make it to the IIMs. It's not that the engineers are better, it's just that they are much more in number. So that's something that I want to tell non-engineers. The second thing would be that CAT is just an exam. You don't have to hinge your life on it. There are other options as well. It's not the only way to get through it, to do what you want to do in life. It's just a phase that you want to get it. And third would be that if you're really serious about it, do put in the efforts, trust the process. I cannot stress that how many anxiety moments and suffering moments I've had, when you doubt yourself, your capabilities during CAT, during VAT-PI. Even here, when you're in B school, you end up doubting yourself every second. How did I make it here? There's so many people with so much better profiles than I am. But then again, you have to just trust the process and believe in yourself. And I think that belief is what gets you through.